Be cautious about yearning for more when you already hold everything you could ever desire. For the universe might just fulfill your wish, and then observe with a wry smile as you dismantle your own existence. My name is Clara, and this is the tale of how one fleeting exchange demolished the most precious connection I'd ever cherished, leaving me without a place to call home, heartbroken and entirely alone. Ethan and I were the couple others secretly envied, always so seamlessly aligned. For 3 years, we lived in a quaint city apartment, woven together by our small traditions and inside jokes. My online world was a gallery of our shared moments. Photos from mountain trails, live music nights, candid shots, and quiet Sunday mornings lingering over coffee and word games. We were utterly content, or so I thought. But then the whispers of my friends began to infiltrate my mind. You know that feeling when everyone around you is chasing bold, divergent paths, and your own serene life suddenly feels lackluster by comparison. My dearest friend Mia kept subtly suggesting I was wasting my youth. How could I be sure Ethan was my forever if I hadn't explored other possibilities? She'd muse this while scrolling through dating apps, showcasing profiles of supposedly remarkable men I could encounter. A tiny seed of doubt was planted, growing into a sprawling vine of uncertainty. Whenever Ethan did something routine, like choosing our favorite diner or drifting off during a film, I found myself daydreaming about exhilarating adventures with mysterious strangers. Instead of debating who'd cover the grocery costs, Mia and her friends would venture out, returning with stories of spontaneous dates, brief flings, and spur-of-the-moment trips, while I was at home, planning meals for the week like some settled homemaker. Without realizing it, I began to pull away, staying out later and dodging questions about where I'd been. When Ethan inquired about my evenings, I'd lash out, accusing him of trying to cage me, when in reality, he was just reaching for the partner who was visibly slipping away. Back then, I couldn't see it. All I felt was trapped, convinced I was missing a world of excitement. The breaking point arrived when I found myself browsing solo travel packages. Not because I truly craved to journey alone, but because the idea of freedom felt exhilarating. Ethan discovered my search history, and that's when our world unraveled. He sat me down, his face carved with worry, asking if I was unhappy, if there was another person, or if our bond no longer satisfied me. Instead of admitting my foolish uncertainties or talking through my emotions like a mature person, I panicked and uttered the most damaging words. I told him I loved him but needed to venture out before we became too committed. I actually said venture out, as if he were an obstacle to my growth rather than the man who'd been steadfastly loyal for 3 years. You should have seen his face when I suggested a break. Not a permanent split, but a temporary pause so I could dip my toes in other waters and return once I was certain he was my true match. His expression was as if I'd proposed something unthinkable. That should have signaled I was teetering on the edge of the gravest error of my life. But I pressed on, insisting it was fair because he could see others too. Though the thought twisted my gut, I genuinely believed I was being rational, that we could maintain our connection while I explored other men, only to slide back into our comfortable life once I'd satisfied my craving for novelty. Ethan grew quiet, a silence more chilling than any heated argument. Then he asked, with an eerie calm, if I expected him to wait at home while I tested other options, ready to welcome me back when I decided he was enough. His contained anger should have halted me, but I stumbled on, claiming it wasn't about him being lacking. It was about ensuring we weren't settling too early. Every word only deepened the wound. He pointed out that my idea erased us, that I was asking him to be my safety net while I roamed freely. The dispute escalated, with him labeling me selfish and me accusing him of being controlling, until I snatched my bag and announced I'd stay at Mia's until he could talk rationally. As if he were the one overreacting to my perfectly sensible plan. That's when he spoke words that should have jolted me awake. Don't assume things will be unchanged when you come back. But I was so convinced of my own logic that I scoffed and stormed out, certain he'd see the sense in my proposal once he calmed down. Mia's sofa was far less welcoming than our bed. Her excitement for my so-called freedom faded after 2 days, when she began hinting I should find my own space. My other friends weren't eager to house a heartbroken woman, especially when it disrupted their own romantic pursuits. By the 4th day, Ethan's silence, no messages, no calls, started to eat at me. I decided to return to our apartment, prepared to apologize and find a middle ground that suited us both. But when I tried my key, it wouldn't work. I fumbled with it, thinking the lock was just finicky, but it wouldn't even fit properly. Then Mrs. Carter, our neighbor, mentioned seeing a locksmith the day before. My heart plummeted as the reality struck. Ethan had changed the locks. He'd shut me out. When I finally reached him by phone, his voice was cold, confirming my fears. He'd assumed full control of the lease, and my name was being removed. I had until Saturday, from 2 to 4 o'clock, to collect my possessions, and he wouldn't be present. That's when the full weight hit me. I was without a home. The man I'd shared a life with for nearly 3 years had erased me from his world in less than a week. Suddenly, my pursuit of more felt far less alluring as I sat in the hallway outside an apartment I could no longer claim. The weeks that followed melted into a fog of couch surfing, desperate calls, and growing despair. My friends, once so vocal about my need for liberation, disappeared when I needed true support, citing house rules, limited space, or visiting partners. I scraped together enough for a small studio apartment, barely larger than our old bedroom, with thin walls and noisy neighbors. Each night, I lay awake, wondering how I'd lost everything in one careless conversation. The true devastation came when I returned to gather my belongings and saw Ethan with someone new. A vibrant woman named Ava, who was comfortable enough in my former home to have her own key and wear his shirts. She embodied everything I'd thought I craved. Spontaneous, carefree, living for the now. Ethan looked happier than ever, more confident, as if removing me had been his wisest decision. In a frantic attempt to reclaim him, I bared my soul, but he looked at me with something like sympathy and said words that still haunt me. I cared for you once, but that's gone now. 6 months later, I'm still in that tiny apartment, scrolling through dating apps, chasing whatever I thought I was missing. Ethan and Ava are engaged, crafting the life I threw away, because I was convinced something greater was out there. But the grass isn't greener, it's just different, and often harsher. What I was seeking was already in my hands, and by the time I realized it, someone else was living the life I'd envisioned, while I'm left questioning how I could have been so blind. So, to anyone contemplating a break to test the waters, take this caution. Be ready to lose everything. Freedom has a price, and sometimes that cost is far greater than you could ever fathom.